Welcome to Let's Talk Business, and on today's episode of Let's Talk Business, we'll be looking at why businesses fail in Africa. My name is Segun Manuel, and on today's episode of the program, we have one of Africa's finest exports, Pastor Ashimolowo. Pastor Ashimolowo is the senior pastor of Kingsway International Church in London, and also the pastor of the biggest church in Western Europe. So welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. A privilege.
We appreciate having you on today's episode of the program. So, in your book, What is Wrong with Being Black? It is stated that Africa is unarguably the richest continent in the world, but it unfortunately comprises of the poorest people around. Why is this so, sir, in your opinion?
Well, it's a combine of many things. Firstly, because Africa is still, despite the independence of most of the nations, it's still like most of Africa's nations are still evolving. Some of them are still in this fighting colonial master mentality. Another reason why Africa is in that condition is because in the majority, the people of Africa were not empowered by their colonial masters to succeed. And many have not taken the time to correct the anomaly. Let me give you an example. If you look at the whole of Nigeria, you'll be interested to realize that the railways which the British built into Nigeria was to only go to two places, or three places, to go to the north and bring groundnut to the ports, to go to Yoruba land, i.e. Ibadan, to bring cocoa to the port, and to go to Enugu and bring coal to the port. That was all. So the nations were not empowered to kickstart an economic system. Another reason why Africa is still backward and poor is that somebody had written, whom I quoted in my book, What's Wrong with Being Black. He mentioned 3 or 4 tribes. He said apart from the Kikuyus of Kenya, the Ashantis of Ghana, the Igbos, Yorubas of Nigeria, and 1 tribe in Cameroon, he said essentially most of Africa are subsistent in their thinking. Subsistent thinking, of course, means I'm only trying to survive. I'm not trying to build an enterprise. And when you only have a survival mentality, you don't build great things. You just want to make it each day. And sometimes when you watch some of the Nigerian movies, in African movie, when they show maybe olden days, you notice that all you see is that people go to farm, they eat, they come back. They go to farm, they come back. They go to farm to come. All they were doing is surviving through what they plant. They hardly plant more than what they need to eat. So Africans need to shift from that subsistent thinking to an entrepreneurial mindset. That will be a major shift, particularly for even the coming generation, to not just think of surviving. And actually part of subsistent thinking is for you to graduate in the university and be looking for jobs. Jobs always keep you just, I always abbreviate it by saying JOB, just over broke. Whereas life is more than living just over broke.
That's right. All right, you've mentioned quite a few reasons why Africa is the way it is, but some writers and some scholars have said that one of the major problems Africa has is the leadership problem. In your opinion, sir, how do we reverse this trend?
Firstly, the challenge with leadership in Africa, and that is actually a major reason for the backwardness of Africa. And part of the problem is, if you go again back into my book, I argued that even the colonial masters, seeing that they have to leave, created a system that made us at fault from the beginning. They took tribes that were smaller and placed them on the bigger ones. And sometimes they took tribes that were not that educated and gave them the impression that they are the political masters, while the tribes that are educated were told that they are the technical or technocrats. So those who were told they are the political masters always felt it was their birthright to rule. And it's the same in Nigeria, in Ghana, It was the cause of the problem in Rwanda. To reverse this, Africa needs to realize that it needs to create institutions that raise leaders. In our universities, for example, in Nigeria, we have what is called GNS, the compulsory course in which you do every subject. They should have in it leadership training, leadership program, so that there is an evolution of young leaders coming up. We need to go to the root to why our leaders have failed. We need to also study what are the essential elements of successful leadership. In fact, right now I'm in the middle of researching and writing on leadership. I was so burdened that I began an MBA on leadership, although I had to stop it because of the work commitment. I'm in the middle of writing 5 books on leadership, because particularly in Africa, the challenge of the nations is not the absence of resource. Our resources are great, and our people are hungry to do, to work, to achieve, to succeed. They have passion. I live in Europe. I've lived in Europe 29 years, and I would rather take an African young person than a European person who is very laid back and who is not interested in pursuing anything. And part of the ways to correct the leadership challenges, develop new leaders, pick on the new coming generation, create systems to help them build their mind. Number 3, develop their capacity. If you look at those whom we call our leaders today, they are leaders because they are tribal leaders. They came in on the basis of tribe. Once they see that they are not likely to win an election, they will raise a group of thugs from their tribe to cause problem. It isn't because the nation can see incredible gifting. It's very sad that you can open newspapers in Africa and see quotable quotes from our leaders. When we want to quote great sayings, we have to say Martin Luther King said. Thank God we are finding some people in the church today. We can quote Papa Ayo Richard Java, we can quote David Oyedepo, we can quote, because these men are deep thinkers. You can't see it among our politicians, and most of them are tribal leaders, tribal chiefs rather, and not leaders. They got to their position because their tribe chose them. And when they get there again, their perspective is limited by their tribe. They have no exposure. What is the solution? Capacity development. Human capacity development. In other words, for you to lead a nation like Nigeria, 150 million people, because you went to university is not enough. There should have been a process of human capacity development. And you see it in places like the USA. Sometimes they will take note of a young man who seemed to have a future, and from university days and his political involvement, they begin to help him to grow more. Bill Clinton did not get to where he is by chance. He got a scholarship as a Rhodes Scholar to go to Oxford. As he came out, he became more involved with the Democratic Party, met with John Fitzgerald Kennedy, and from even his youth, he was one of those that were being groomed to lead in the future. There is no such thing. Rather, we see these same tribal chiefs replacing themselves with their children. And many of these children have no connection. From primary school, they were shipped out to schools and cultures that are very different. They have no connection with the people. How they won the election is a mystery. So, what is the solution? Africa needs to begin to develop its own people by human capacity development. And human capacity development must start with changing curriculums in our school. Instead of just running courses that make no difference, we need to begin to look at our systems. What can we do? How do we raise leaders? Even the church too needs to just stop Sunday morning service, midweek service. It needs to create institutions, leadership institutes, where people can go through a course on leadership. Because you see, many people think they are leaders. Some are managers and they are not leaders. There is a dichotomy between a manager and the leader. The best and simplest way to define both is that managers are risk averse. They never like to take risk. Leaders are pathfinders. They go where no one wants to go and do things nobody wants to do.
That's just wow, sir. You mentioned that organizations and individuals don't expand or grow by chance. You mentioned as part of your teaching yesterday, and you also mentioned it when you were talking now. The government definitely has a role to play in all of this, but what role does individual African entrepreneurs have to play? What do they need to do to expand businesses and move from the level that we are at right now?
I think one of the greatest benefits the upcoming entrepreneur has today is that the world has become a village.
That's right.
In microseconds, even just on my phone, I can be in connection with China via the internet.
That's right.
I can right now be looking at a trade fair that is being streamed in Brazil. So number one, the upcoming entrepreneur needs to see himself as a global player. The challenge of African people is that we want to escape our continent to Europe or America when we don't even know how to get to Benin Republic. Whereas I travel a lot across Africa, you will be shocked at the massive need for African interplay. I remember going to preach in Zambia, and my bookstore manager at that time was a lady who was my daughter, who I raised from the age of 11. So she had led her team to sell my books there. People were rushing her to ask for African clothes. Because that's another thing in my book. Below West Africa, one of the things European colonization did in sub-Kalahari Africa is to take away their culture. Apart from a few tribes in South Africa that kept their clothes, you will never see any African below West Africa with anything. It's always shirt and coat and tie. Even old grandmother of 95, she wear gown. They've taken it from them. We kept it. It's amazing. Only God understands how we kept. Maybe Nigerians are stubborn. And somebody had said the benefit and blessing of Nigeria was that mosquitoes chased out Europeans in 1959 before the oil was discovered in large quantity, if not. Anyway, so you find out, look, for example, they were coming and asking for African clothes. If that girl had taken maybe 100 prints and they were ready to pay $100, $200, they just were, because one of the things Nollywood did was to put Nigeria in all those corners, and people saw that we had all these various clothes and they wanted it. That's one business, for example.
Exactly.
I've been to Democratic Republic of Congo. If you look in my book, it's the wealthiest nation on earth potentially, yet a policeman is being paid 15,000 naira. 15,000 naira. Why? Because the wealth is still in the ground. They have not extracted it. In fact, rather you have some Chinese guys who are illegally mining somewhere. Nigerians don't go there. There is a deficiency in housing there. All our estates just want to build in Nigeria and make quick money. Whereas if you go to Democratic Republic of Congo, they need estates, they need university lecturers, they need so many things. Even if you don't speak French, you can develop, you can achieve in Congo, Namibia, several of the nations. So Africans need to move outside their box, think outside the box, see Africa as a global playing field, do your business right. That's the problem. Nigerians are dominating the electronic business in Kinshasa, Congo. Some of these guys, they enter illegally. Make sure you legalize your entrance so that if anybody wants to victimize you, your embassy too can argue on your behalf. Because I wouldn't want to go and defend an illegality. That was in the plane. Some guy was coming from Malawi, Nigerian. He said, oh, we watch you on TV there every day. He's an Igbo guy, he sells electronics in Malawi. I said, only Igbo. So we need to think outside the box. We need to think beyond Nigeria.
That's right.
We need to see ourselves as a global village and begin not by running to go and start a business in Britain, start it here. Have a network in Ghana. Have a network in Benin. Have an office in Nairobi. There are things you know to do, so begin to take advantage. The reason I make this emphasis because right now, European economies are going down. They are being downgraded by Fitch and other people who assess them. They have been downgraded from A+ to A, some to B. You know, France is now a B. Spain is almost C. Greece is, I think, D or E. Whereas African countries, even in 2013, are still like virgin land. I mean, here we are. We're in a hotel that came from South Africa into Warri. And this same chain of hotels is across Nigeria now. We are desperate for them to come. They are smart.
That's right.
Anywhere you now go, you find businesses coming out of South Africa into various African places. Right. The best shops now in Nigeria are ShopRite. And there's nothing in there that a Nigerian couldn't have implemented. Right. So I guess maybe they were pressured to put them there. When there was sanction against South Africa, they came up with ideas to handle the sanction. So now we also need to now take that, borrow that idea and become a global player. Enter legally, do things well. MTN is here from South Africa. Let Glow, that is our own baby, go to other African nations. Let, Econet came here from Zimbabwe, which became Airtel. Let our own businesses begin to go places. So any young man who's watching, if you're in the clothing business, it may not be a big shop, but begin to advertise on the net. Begin to have an agent over there. We are so engrossed in promoting other people's name that they are even shocked. Nigerian boys like to wear a particular shirt. I'm trying to remember the name now. The owners had to come to Nigeria to see what is it. In fact, BlackBerry had to come to Nigeria because we were the second largest market of BlackBerry. They had to come from Canada and say, what exactly
is going on?
Is going on? Everyone is BlackBerry crazy. And whereas when you get to their system, you might just find one or two Nigerians who's part of the innovation and the creativity. So also our government need to create the enabling environment. It is very frustrating. I live in England. It takes 5 minutes to register a company. In Nigeria, it takes probably 1, 2, 3 months. England, you can do it online for £15, 5 minutes. Up to today, in spite of the government telling us you can do it within a short time, is not practical. It's not possible. And we think it is FDI that would change our situation, foreign direct investment, when we have not yet even encouraged our own internal system. Harvard Business Review showed that only a minuscule foreign direct investment enters South Africa. Yet they are
so well.
Forgive me to say, many of our banks in Nigeria are babies beside South African banks. Babies. Even our largest is a baby beside FMB, beside
Stambik.
Yes. So we need to increase our capacity. The government needs to create the enabling environment. The system is just so harsh. Everything is political, you know, and then corruption needs to be fought. And when I say corruption, I was just thinking about it the other day. Every time you say corruption, people think you are talking someone who stole government money. It has permeated
beyond that
every microcosm. We need to fight it.
So much has been said by Pastor Matthew, but don't go anywhere. When he comes back, he will tell us some other reasons why African businesses fail and provide solutions to how you can start and grow your own business. Back to Let's Talk Business. Pastor Matthew has been sharing with us reasons why businesses fail in Africa, and on this part of the program is going to be telling us how we can solve these problems and how you can grow your business wherever you are at in Africa. Sir, you mentioned some of the reasons why African businesses fail, but I'm going to ask you again, why do African businesses fail?
African businesses fail, firstly, because the enabling environment is not there. It's not enough for the government to go looking for businesses to come. They need to create the platform. We need to be able to register companies easily. We need to be able to operate easily. We need to be able to have places where we can run business. If you don't want street shopping and street markets, then create proper, good, well-run markets. Then when a person is starting a business, give little opportunities. Cut down tax for businesses that are just starting. So that it's not the same tax level, bam, for a person who is just starting. And the business that has been running for long. If you say fresh tax, first 10 years, your tax level, only 5%, come to Delta. Tax-free for the first 5 years. You'll be shocked. Many companies will come in. Of course, there needs to be monitoring. You know, Nigeria, you say first 5 years, you'll be renewing every 10 years. You say still 5 years. You know, still 5 years. So create a system where taxation is not that high. Create a system also where the people have access to government aid and help. Let there be business parks, an area where businesses can start and they don't have to. Sometimes our capitals are tied up. Create systems where some of the laws that pre-existed a long time ago are softened. I'm a chairman of a university that's about to take off, belonging to a church. We spent $2 billion. We're still waiting for NUC to give license. If it were a business and not a church that put its money, 2 billion naira tied up for 7 years because of the policy, the system, or we are coming to inspect. It takes 1 year to inspect. After 1 year of inspection, we don't like this ceiling. Correct it, we shall come back. It's another 1 year of waiting. It is very discouraging as a diasporian. If I don't love Nigeria, I won't come back. It's very frustrating. Create the enabling environment. Then as an entrepreneur yourself, move away from subsistent thinking. See yourself as a builder of the future. Not just we manage, we want to survive. I was watching a documentary of how the Ford company started. The guy came against serious resistance. The original owners of copyright of how cars work was a cabal in America. They wouldn't let anybody manufacture, and he wanted to manufacture a car everyone can buy. They took him to court. They fought him very hard. But while the court case was going on, since there was no injunction for him to start, he just kept producing. His car became popular. He was the first to create a mass production system. The court granted him, and so he was able to achieve. He created something for generations to come. Today, Ford, the fourth, is the chairman of Ford Company. See beyond today. Create something your children can enjoy, your great-grandchildren, and generations beyond you. When an eagle builds its nest, it does not build for itself. A nest of a real eagle is almost like a sitting room. It is for generations to come, so that anything happens, they can always come back home. So that is one of the ways to think. A business entrepreneur of the future also must begin to look for USP, unique selling point. You go out there, mechanic is doing the same mechanic that another mechanic is doing. You need to ask yourself, what is my unique selling point? Bring creativity, do something new, bring innovation. Then, on a pyramid, always not focus at the top, look at the bottom. There are small businesses we can start. And the government should help SMEs, small and medium enterprises. Because the Bible says God will bless the work of your hand, your basket, and your storehouse. Start from work of hand. move to basket, and then basket to storehouse.
So we need to start small and
start
grow
small.
big.
Work of hand is salary kind of.
Okay.
SME is the basket.
Okay.
And then storehouse is when you are hiring 100 people, 200 people. You have entered the big league.
All right. You heard it first here from Pastor Matthew. He told us how to run our businesses in Africa, and that he's already writing 5 books on leadership, so you can keep your tabs on that. That will be out very soon. But sir, on the final note before we go,
sure.
What's your word to, we have many people who are stuck in their jobs right now, who are engineers but are working in banks, who are trained as doctors but are waiting for a job, like you said, just over broke. What's your final word? Look in the camera and tell us what final word he needs to have.
Okay. For all those people who are watching me right now, the latest Harvard Business Journal gives 3 key things you can see in any successful business. It was a study they did over 25 years. The first one is nothing can replace being the best. So aim at being better than what you used to be. If you are at the work serving somebody or an institution, a bank employee, be the best. Be the best. Then in your spare moments, give services to some other people. Help some kid around your neighborhood. Teach him mathematics. Teach him English. Today's kid is tomorrow's leader. Then also begin to create new streams. Don't depend on only one stream of income in your life. Some of you are gifted with clothes making and you work at the bank. Why don't you have some tailors who are sewing for you and you are also designing what they will sew? They have job, you have extra income, both of you are fulfilled. Those are some of the ways to achieve greatness in the future and to make impact. But whatever you do, make a commitment to be the best. Also make a commitment to be unique, so that when they mention your name, there are things they remember. They say, oh, that woman, this is what we know her for. There is a uniqueness to you. That's the reason nobody looks like you, talks like you, or has your voice modulation. So your uniqueness must be stamped on everything you do.